Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the fourth episode of this webinar, Relatics, What's New? Now, our developers try to avoid the spotlight as much as possible, so as you used from us, your favorite Relatics trio will be here to give their work the attention it deserves. I am joined here in the studio by my colleagues, Ruben and Martin. How are you doing? Martin, are you excited?
Yeah, very much. It's already a fourth webinar. It's slowly starting to feel like a routine, but yeah, happy to show some cool new features today again. I will be focusing mainly on some improvement to existing features. Ruben will mainly show the new stuff, but I surely don't feel inferior to Ruben because I also got some really cool stuff.
All right, thank you, Martin. Ruben, Martin just told us you are going to premiere something long-awaited, a long-awaited feature today. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. So I'm very excited to show more about the new feature where we're going to be working with templates, but I don't want to spoil too much, so I'll leave that for the segment it's intended for, and I'll show a bit about other new features that we've added in Relatics, or our colleagues from development, I should say.
All right, very excited. Well, let's not spoil it. Let's jump right into it. But before we do, I would like to remind you that we have a question and answer possibility. So if you have any questions during this webinar, please send them in the chat, and we might or might not answer them live on stream. And if we don't, we will certainly get back to you after the show. Now, I would like to start with complexity, because projects hang together with countless connections and dependencies, and the bigger the construction project, obviously, the bigger this network of dependencies become and the more complex your project becomes. Now, one of the factors that influences project success is actually the ability to control this complexity. And Relatics helps with that by providing you insight into the complexity of your project. Now, within Relatics, laying connections, actually connecting the dots together, is one of the most important features that the software possesses. Actually, relations are so crucial to our software that, well, the company was named after them. So that's what I want to talk about, because if my info is correct, Martin, our developers have worked very hard to make this easier and intuitive. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, that's correct. So I'll be focusing today on those specific improvements. Like you said, yeah, relations are really important, of course, in a construction project. There are tons of interdependencies. So it's therefore, crucial to for the software to act in a nice, intuitive way. So I have a couple of improvements to relating elements together, and I want to show you them right now. Like I said in the beginning, I'm focusing mainly on the improvements of existing features. Basically, we have development teams that develop brand new stuff, but also teams that focus on existing what is already there. We do that based on feedback that we receive either from users, from our customers, our own consultants, but also the system engineering partners that we work with, for example. I'll dive right into the software now. If you have any questions, Sebastian, or if you think for the audience at home it's not clear, just interrupt me. First thing I want to show you has to do with selecting multiple elements at once. I will show you that if I go over to objects, and if I click on an object, the example of relating requirements to an object. I can do that, for example, using the relatable elements view on the right. And what we added now is the option or the possibility to select multiple requirements, in this case, at the same time, by using the control button on your keyboard. So in this way, you can just do some cherry picking, so to say, and you can select multiple requirements at once. By dragging them, you create the relation itself. We already, or Relatics already had the possibility to use your shift button, and that way you could select a range of elements that are connected to each other, so to say. And now you can also use the control to do this cherry picking. But you can also combine those two features. So, for example, if you use your Shift button to select a range, for example, from requirement 10 to a requirement number 20, you can now use the control to exclude a few if you'd like. And again, by dragging, you create the relationship. The nice thing is this works everywhere, so not only in the relatable elements view, but also in the overview or in the details view. So it's not only handy for creating relationships, but also if you want to do some quick copy-paste, for example, of elements, or when you're working in a tree and you want to quickly create a hierarchy in the tree, this also comes in really handy. And last but not least in this area is also a new keyboard shortcut that people might know from spreadsheets and so on. You can do Control A and then you select all the requirements in this case. And again, by dragging, you create the actual relationships. This immediately brings me to the next feature, because if I close this view and when I refresh the detail view, which is actually also a new improvement, if you just click on the tab, then it refreshes. What you'll notice is the requirements table is limited by the first 10 requirements. So this is a new feature. Before we had the collapse and expand feature on tables, but based on feedback, we changed this a little bit. And now if you have a table with more than 20 items, it will only show the initial 10 at the beginning. And of course, you can still click show all, and then all of them will be shown. Like I said, it's based on feedback, and together with the sections in the top, it's a nice way to keep the detail view organized and users not to get overwhelmed by too much information.
So just to recap real quick. So if you have 10 relations, 11 relations, 12 relations, the table will be just shown as is. However, whenever you have more than 20 relations, then the table will be cut off at the 10th one. That's correct.
Yeah, that's correct. We didn't want to be, childish, and if you have 11 requirements that you have to go, or you have to click show all to show this this one. So it's indeed as of 20, it will be cut off after the first 10. Yeah.
So what if you don't have all your relations in the table? So you have the show all button, but then you press Control A, or you select all.
Yeah, if you want to select all, and you do have with, I can show you, when you do now Control A, it will only, for example, if you now click on delete, if you want to delete them, it will obviously only delete those that you actually see. So what you see is what you get, basically.
Okay, so what's more with the relations?
Two more other things. They're a little bit smaller, but I've now used the relatable elements view to drag elements. But you can, of course, also use the normal pop-up screen if you double-click here. And what we added here is the option in the table also to select all or unselect all. So another, nice and quick way to do a bulk selection of all the elements. This counts for, of course, multi-relations. So in case you can, the model allows you to select more than one element. But we also did a small improvement to the single relation. So if you can only select one item, in this case, I have an example here of a person being responsible for an object. What we did here is just a small improvement. Of course, you have radio buttons here. If you do a double click, then automatically the relation is created. So you don't first have to select and then click apply. Double click does the job, and then you automatically have this relation created. And this immediately brings me to the last improvement in this area. It also has to do something with this relation, because you can imagine an example that you are creating objects in this case, and because you as an individual user, you might want to select yourself as the initiator. you of course have to do that one by one and every time select your own name there. But as you might remember from the previous webinar, we now introduced the option to connect a user from the workspace settings to a person in the workspace. And we now build upon this functionality to make like a quick selection to yourself. I will show you how it looks like. This is in the relation settings. You have here now a checkbox that says element linked to current user as the default to element. So if I enable this feature, and if I now create a new object, then you'll see on the right-hand side that automatically the relation is created to myself. Of course, I'm still able to delete it if I want to, and it works both for multi-relations as single relations. So those are all the improvements in the field of creating relationships, basically.
Amazing. Thank you, Martin. It's good to see that not only new features are being developed and released, but also existing features, especially as crucial as relating, are being evaluated and further improved. Now, are you interested in learning more about how to stay on top of your project and control your project? Well, we have something for that, because we have on our website the resources page where you can find our Relatics Academy, and you can find the help, you can find some model patterns, and for free to download 2 white papers where we dive a little bit further into how model-based systems engineering can help you keep control of your project. Now, for the next subject, like anything in life, practice makes perfect. And the more you do something, obviously, the better you become at it. And construction projects are no different, because with every project, there are lessons to be learned and to be applied on subsequent projects. Now, Ruben, how do construction organizations actually carry over the lessons they learned from previous projects? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. So once again, our colleagues from development have made a major step in expanding the list of functionalities for Relatics 6. And for the version 6.5, we'll be releasing working with templates. But we as consultants often see the needs from our clients to basically reuse their system engineering model if they are going to start a construction project of a similar type. So basically, they want to use the lessons learned from a previous project and implement them for the next project. And this is something we want to support with the use of working with templates, because it's common sense to use those lessons learned for a next project. And now some of you might think that that clashes a bit with the work we do as consultants, because we go to a client and we identify the needs of the project, and then we create a new system engineering model, or we use the flexibility of Relatics to build a new workspace. But that's actually not the case, because clients and projects can still retain that flexibility on their project, but they can make use of standardized processes from previous projects or the lessons learned from previous projects. So as we know, Relatics is used to offer insight into the complexity of your project, and every project is unique. But from an organization level, you want to reuse or standardize certain processes. For example, if you start an infrastructure project and you have a system engineering model for that project, if you start a second infrastructure project that is going to be of a similar type, then we want to make sure we can implement those standardized processes by the use of templates. And of course, I want to demonstrate this. So I'm going to move over to Relatics to just give you a view of how that would look like. Right now, I have the role of environment administrator, so this is on the highest level, and you can see your workspaces that are present in this environment. And as you can see, you can already have a visual indication right here at the top left of the workspace tile, indicating that this development workspace is actually used as a model for the template. So this is actually the foundation for the template. And we also have 3 project workspaces, these 3 bridges, which are attached to the template, which I'll show more of that later on. For now, this is on an environment level, but the most important thing that I want to tell about this, the new feature working with templates, is that we can actually decide if we want to use a dedicated development workspace, like the one in the middle, or we could also choose to use a live ongoing project as the basis for a new template. So we can actually make a choice in either using a development workspace or using a live project as the basis for a new template. And this allows us to really capture those lessons learned and capture those standardized process and then implement them for future projects of a similar type.
Okay. So the environment administrator points towards a workspace and chooses which workspace can actually serve as a workspace to release templates from, correct?
That's correct, yeah. And I'll show you more on that later. But there was a reason why I started on the level of environment administrator, because I'm going to switch a bit between roles to show you how to work with templates and how to explain the use cases that are going to show you this. But let's say for this case, I started at the environment administration level. I have my workspace that I administered as template. And now I want to switch to the role of power user of that development workspace. So I'll go into Relatics, and I am the power user of the development workspace. So I'll move into the workspace. And let's say that I want to create a new version of that template. So this is just like a normal workspace. If I am the power user, I just move over to my graph view like normal, and I start adding or changing the system engineering model. So for this example, I want to add a relation for requirements. So I'll add a relation to requirement to be able to construct a requirement breakdown structure. So I'll just add that relation and change the element so that we can initiate a requirement breakdown structure. And I'm going to add a relation between interface and document to allow people to relate documents to an interface. So let's say that's a reference document. So something like has reference is reference 4. So I've added 2 new relations, and I've also altered the element requirement to be able to create a requirement breakdown structure. And this allows me to move to the settings of this workspace as power user of this development workspace. And I can actually move over to this new feature, templates. And this is the place where I, as a power user of the development workspace, can actually create a new version of the template, which is going to be pushed to all the projects that are attached to this template. So I'll create a new template version, and Relatics will allow me to choose a name for my template, of course. So I can just maybe change that to something more obvious. I can add a version number. But the cool thing is development, or our colleagues from development, also added a feature to implement a change log. Basically, this allows me to write about all the changes that have been made for this version or this new version of the template. So I'll just add those versions. So I added a relation for the creation of a requirement breakdown structure. And of course, I added a relation to relate documents to interfaces. This allows you to capture all the changes that have been made to this version, and you can then hit publish. And from that point on, we can see that the new version of the template has been created with the change log, and it's ready for use in projects.
Okay, so just to recap real quick, environment administrator says this workspace can be used to release templates. The power user of that workspace actually changes the model and releases new versions. But then how are the updates rolled out on the projects? Like, does the power user of the development workspace do that? Is it automatically pushed, or maybe you can show us that?
Yeah, sure. So the next step, as we have this new template version created by the power user of the development workspace, is of course that this new version should be implemented for the attached projects. So right now I'm switching a bit in my role. I am now the power user of one of these projects, let's say the Erasmus Bridge, and I can move into that workspace. And a couple of things I can notice straight away. But before I want to move into the settings, I want to actually show you something from the graph view, because all users in this workspace can actually see that this workspace is linked to the template via this new icon that's attached to the graph view. And if you hover over it with your mouse, you can actually see the name of the template it's attached to. So all users get an indication of that they're working in a workspace that's linked to a template. But for the power user, they get an indication in the workspace settings, as you can see at the bottom right here. They can move over to the settings where they can find template updates. And again, this is an indicator showing that there is an update available. So I can just click on that and I can actually see that the new version has been released, and I have the ability to update my workspace to the new version. But it's really important. I want to make a note of something very important here. The reason we selected the power user of the project to be able to update it to a new version is because the power user will always have the best or the most complete insight of the complexity of the project. So let's say the project is right in the middle of a critical phase of the project where they have to supply a verification plan for the client or something like that. Or they have to finish some critical task within the project. The power user can then decide to maybe wait a bit with the update, let's say maybe during the night when nobody is working, or maybe a day later, because then you will not have any effect on that critical stage in the project. You will not have any effect on the verification plan or something like that. And that's why it's very important that they can decide the moment of updating. And again, this is important. It's only about the moment of updating. I mean, all projects need to be updated to the latest version to stay attached to the best version of the template. The power user only has the option to decide when to do it, so that in reality they can choose the best moment for that update. So if I go back to Relatics, you can see that the update is ready to go, but before I hit update, I have the ability to check the change log just to see what parts of my model are going to change based on this update. And this is something that allows me to decide or think about that ideal moment to start that update. So I can just see that change log, I can hit update, I of course get a message, and we're updating.
So, how long does this update take?
Actually, it's just a few seconds.
Really?
At the moment I hit update, I think it took maybe 2 seconds. So the moment you started your question, the update was already finished.
Oh my. Well, I'm sure the power users on the projects will be very happy with that. Now, this is updating existing projects that are already attached to a template. Now, what if I want to start a completely new project, but I want it to be attached to the template? How do I go about to get that done?
So again, I'll change my role. So I'll zoom out a bit to back to the level of environment administrator. So if I go back into Relatics, I have my workspaces again on an environment level. And this is basically the same as you would create any new workspace, which is also done by the environment administrator. So I go to my settings and I go to my workspaces, and immediately you see something new here, because we can actually see from this workspace list which workspace are attached to which template, and you can also see which version they are attached to. So you can also see which workspaces still have that update pending. So this gives you an overview of all attached workspaces, but it also gives you an overview of the template workspaces. And I can simply just click on a new workspace, give it a name, and instead of going for the empty workspace, I can just click on that setup and select from template. And this allows me to create a new workspace based on the template version that is released to the environment. And this is not limited to only one template. You can actually have multiple templates coexisting next to each other, which of course in practice you'll see a lot when you, for instance, have an infrastructure template, or you might need something for civil construction as well. So you'll have the ability to have multiple templates coexist, and then the environment administrator can select the proper template, just hit create, and then the workspace will be created. Of course, I need to add myself so I can enter the workspace and I can see it. And if I move back, then I have my new infrastructure project, which has the entire model which it got from the template version.
All right, so you now have a new infrastructure workspace based exactly on the template that we just released. It is a one-on-one copy. However, as the project progresses, we noticed that actually the risk management module could be a little bit more expensive because we need to register some things that the current template doesn't allow for. Does that mean that I cannot be attached anymore to the template?
Well, no, you still have, and this is something I refer to at the start of my story, you can still have that flexibility that Relatics offers, because even if a project is attached to a template, you still have the ability to make project-specific expansions to the model. So I want to show you that again. I'll move back to the role of power user on a project, and let's take the Erasmus Bridge again as an example. So if I go to the graph view, of course, I notice that this is the model that I got from the template. But in real life, we as consultants often see that projects might have a bit of a different need on the project than the previous one. Let's say that the client for this project wants a bit of a change to something like requirement analysis or something like verifications. You still have that ability to make small additions to this model. So let's say I want to add a property to the element action, which is not in the template. I can simply add a new property, let's say text, and create that in my system description, and create that in my system engineering model. And oh, sorry, I did it on requirement. Well, that's no matter, because it's just to show you that if I create a project-specific expansion, Relatics will add a star icon to indicate that this is a project-specific expansion, which was not a part of the template it's attached to. So you still have that ability to expand upon this model if needed. Let's say I wanted to add a relation from discipline to person, no problem. If it's just an addition, has or something like this. I won't think too much about the role names for this instance, but as you can see, we added a relation, and Relatics adds that star icon to indicate that these are project-specific additions, indicating that you still have that flexibility to change the needs of the project independently from being attached to the template.
Okay, so what happens if your model, well, the star icon indicates that you have a project-specific change or expansion, but what if your model looks like a sky full of stars, that you've changed it so much that, well, it almost doesn't look like the original template anymore? Is it possible to detach?
It is, yeah, and for the previous segment, of course, for obvious reasons, you are not allowed to modify existing parts of the attached model, because that's a part of the template, and then you would change the standardized processes. But if you are deviating so much from this template that basically your system engineering model is completely different from the model that's being pushed by the template versions, you have the ability to detach. And you can just detach from the template and go about your own way, basically, and add those new needs to your system engineering model. It could even be so that in the future, because you've added so much, you've changed the model so much, that you could actually function as an example for a new template based on an ongoing project. So you could actually detach, make all these changes to your model, and then actually serve as a new template for, in the future if for some reason these new processes want to be standardized for other projects as well.
All right, cool, thank you. Well, I can immediately tell you that this has been highly anticipated, and our viewers are very enthusiastic, because I see my list with questions get filled. So We will get back to you later in this webinar. But for now, I'm going to switch back to Martin, because just like the first segment, we again going to talk about a subject that has that is more a collection of incremental improvements, yet very impactful. We're going to talk a little bit about the Treeview. I mean, a Treeview is just a navigation page or an overview page where the hierarchical structure is very much in the spotlight, so very much takes a center stage. What are some subjects within systems engineering that make use of Treeviews frequently?
Well, in system engineering, the Treeview is really crucial. Hey, you can imagine multiple examples of, for example, your requirement breakdown structure with derived requirements, your object breakdown structure with child and parent objects, your work breakdown structure with work packages and activities. So they play quite an important role in system engineering. And well, in basically every Relatics workspace, you'll find one or more Treeviews. And there were still a couple of improvements that we had in mind and that we received from users that we wanted to add to the Treeview. And by doing so, it's now a real complete, mature component in the software. I want to show you those examples. So if I go to a requirement tree in this case, close the details, you'll see now that like a normal table, also the Treeview now has a ribbon on top. And you see here 3 new buttons. The first one will expand the tree completely. So you have immediately, your tree is fully expanded. And the button next to it does exactly the opposite, so to say. It will collapse the complete tree back to how it used to be. So real, handy features to just quickly, get a view of the whole complete tree and to close it again. The third button is about back in time. This is a feature that I think we presented it in our second or third webinar, which allows you to look at the data at a point in time, whatever point in time you want it to be. And I can click on it, for example, and choose yesterday. And when clicking apply, you will see exactly how this requirement tree in this case looked like yesterday at midnight. And the ribbon will show you that gives you an indication that you're looking at historical data. And you can see that, well, it looks like the complete list of requirements that I already had shown you before as well, but I didn't created the hierarchy in the tree, so it's just a flat list of all the requirements. And of course, I can go back how it should be at this moment. So these are the introduction of complete new ribbon with some cool features. Second improvement has to do with navigating through the tree. You can now use your keyboard arrows to navigate through the tree. So you can go up and down. You can click to the right to expand the current requirement or to show its child requirements. Of course, for multiple levels, and you can go up and then, or you can click left and then it will collapse again. A really sweet way to quickly navigate through your requirement tree. And if you want to open the details of a specific requirement, you can just hit your space bar and then it will show the details on the right-hand side. So this is all about navigating through the Treeview. Some people might also notice already that we also did some improvements to the toolbar. This is the section that gives you all the possibilities in the place where you're currently working. And we added a few new options. First one is the possibility to create what we call a sibling. So for example, if you selected this requirement, you can now, the plus icon will give you the option to create a sibling. And a sibling, basically it's an element on the same level as you're currently at. So I'll give this a name. So if you have the mouse, for example, just outside of in the blank space of your tree view, it will give the option to create a root. Once you've selected a certain element, it will give you the option to create a sibling. So that's a nice small improvement. We also added the up and down arrows in case you have positioning enabled, so you can choose or change the position of the element in the tree view. And last but not least, in the toolbox is also the option to copy paste. So you can just, like it says, copy and paste requirements in this case. Nice to say is that you can also do it in bulk. Then I'm basically combining the multi-select feature that I've shown before, which obviously also works in tree views. And then I can just, using either Shift or Control, I can select multiple requirements, and I can either use the toolbox to do copy paste, but I can also use the keyboard shortcut, the Control-C and Control-V to copy and paste. So again, nice, just new, quite small improvement, but really, useful in daily life, so to say. Then I have still two more improvements to the tree view, and one has to do with sorting. Then I'll go to a different tree, to my work breakdown structure. There it is. I'll just expand it all because maybe users, they knew that before, if you had a tree view and a table, the positioning or the sorting in the tree view was always based on the ID. And what we changed now is that the sorting that you have in your all elements view is always similar to the sorting in your tree. So as you can see here, I have some I have positioning enabled. And so maybe not everybody knows what positioning is, but if you go to the settings, you have here the option to enable positioning. So that basically allows end users to change the position of an element in the tree. And as you can see here, it just has a random sorting. First, work package 3, then 1, then 2. And the same counts for the activities. So to summarize, the sorting in the tree view is now always the same as the sorting in the all elements view. And it's either based on the sorting that the power user has set. So for example, on alphabetic order or based on a certain ID or code, or it's based on the positioning if you have this feature enabled. Brings me to the final improvement. This has to do everything with positioning. I just showed you how you can enable this feature. And what we did now is whenever you create an item in your tree and you have positioning enabled, and for example, I will create a sibling here, then Relatics will now always immediately remember the position where you created this new element. Previously, if you clicked, if you hit refresh, then it would be at the bottom, but now it immediately remembers where you created it, and it will leave it for you there. This also works obviously in normal tables, so not only in the tree view, but also in tables. And the final part, then I'm all done with the tree views. You can also do positioning of a positioning of multiple elements at once. So I can just select a couple of activities and just change the position, and then it will be stored immediately at that position.
All right, thank you, Martin. These are some very nifty improvements to the tree views, and this is also my moment to thank our developers for branching out from maintaining code to maintaining trees. Now for the next segment, I'm going to turn back to you, Ruben, because there's more, but what's more?
Yeah, so I've got a few new additions that I want to show you, and these are just small features which might improve the life cycle or the usage of your project. And I'm going to move to my development workspace. And you might have seen it from the presentation of Martin or from me, but we actually added a button right at the top here on the elements list to be able to collapse and expand the elements list instead of the pinned icon we had before. And you can just hit collapse and expand by hitting the arrow, but you can also use the square brackets on your keyboard. So you can just use keyboard shortcuts to open or to collapse or to expand your type menu. Another cool new feature, and I'll move to my list of requirements, is that for some reason you might want to add test data or something to Relatics. Let's say I create a few requirements, maybe I copy a few requirements and it's actually faulty data from an Excel, and I just want to remove those requirements, which of course you can do. But we've added a feature that's called irrelevant elements. Basically, when an element has been created and deleted in a time span of about 8 hours, Relatics will automatically designate that element as irrelevant, giving you the option to check your undelete or your recycle bin and see those test requirements. And as you can see, they are crossed out, basically indicating that when I create a new requirement, those IDs can be reused. So if you have test data or faulty data that you created and almost immediately deleted, Relatics will make those IDs available again so you can reuse them when you start creating actual requirements you want to keep. Another cool improvement is that we expanded the amount of text you can add in a name property. So normally this would have been 100 characters. We've actually expanded that to 255. So you can actually create longer names for requirements or things like that without them having been cut off. And if that's not enough, you can also actually change the display property of an element and change that from a single line text property like a name to an actual text property. So for example, if you work on a project where they don't have requirement titles but only the requirement text, you can actually use that text as a display for the property. As you can see here in the tree, you can actually see the entire requirement text in the tree. So this is more to change this to your liking based on what kind of properties you have for your element. And excuse me if I'm going a bit fast, but these are cool new small improvements. If I, for instance, want to fill in a comment for a requirement, so an element with a property where I can fill in text, I can actually now use the bullet list, of course, to enter a bit of a text for this comment, but I am also able to use indented bullets now. So I can actually get sub-bullets with content, and it goes down a lot. So we actually, I think it was kind of like 9 levels, so you can do sub-bullet after sub-bullet after sub-bullet. And you can use the icons, but you can also just hit tab to go to a next sub-bullet and then start typing. The last feature I wanted to show you is that when I'm done with my text, normally I would click outside the box to save my text, but I also have the ability now to just hit Control-Enter when I'm done, and the text will be saved. So that's it for a couple of cool new small features we wanted to show.
Amazing. So after that great main course we had, this is just the cherry on top of the sundae for dessert.
A nice appetizer.
Thank you. So with that being said, it's time to switch our attention a little bit, because it's time for the questions from our viewers. So let's start with Mart van der Ven, who asks, what's the difference between this template use and making a new workspace based on another one? Maybe that's for Ruben.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
What's the difference between being attached to a template, or just creating a new workspace based on an existing one?
All right. So when you create a new workspace based on template, you are actually starting a new construction project or a project that has a similar type based on the template you want to have it attached to. But if you have an ongoing project, attaching is actually a lot different. It doesn't work the same way because you might already be working in the project. The project will have its own system engineering model with its own elements, and it might differ from the system engineering model that's provided by the template. So that's why there's a big difference between actually starting a new workspace based on template, which is an empty workspace but with the system engineering model of the template, or if you want to attach an existing project to the template, which is a lot more difficult because you might have a situation in which you, for example, already have risks as part of your system engineering model, and the template would also already have risks as part of the system engineering model. You might end up with conflicts, which makes it a lot more difficult to attach a project which is ongoing.
All right. Well, you mentioned conflict. Donny de Mos has sent in a question exactly about that, because he asks, how do changes in existing relations on template level impact projects or workspaces that have instances on these relations that might be changed or deleted? So what if there is a conflict between a project workspace because it has instances with the template update that is trying to be rolled out?
Yeah, so this is why we've implemented the ability to also check the changelog, because then the power user will have to check if they want to update to a new version, or if they want to pick the moment when they want to update, because they will update. They can see what kind of effect this update is going to have on existing data. So this allows the power user to get a chance to maybe migrate the data if it's supposed to be, if a part is supposed to be deleted, or give it a proper location in the system engineering model. So they can perform that maintenance needed to have everything set for the update to the new version. And that's why this changelog is going to help those power users with maintaining their workspace in an optimal way. But of course, if you delete a part of the model and there's data there, then you have to do something with that data. So you of course need to perform your maintenance as a power user.
All right, very clear. Now, we've received a lot of questions. We will have to get back to them after the webinar by mail because of the time. But one last one for you, Martin, is a question by Natalie. So you have the multi-select with Control-Click. Does it also work on Mac with Command?
Oh, that's a good question, but I'm not completely sure, to be honest, but I'm pretty sure it will work, but I'll get back to it. Yeah, I would be surprised if it wouldn't work.
We'll ask our testers and we'll confirm to you after the webinar. Now, with that being said, this was the end of the 4th webinar, and also actually the end of the last webinar of 2024. This is usually my moment to thank a couple of people, to thank a couple of parties. So first of all, thanks to you guys, Ruben, Martin, for being here today. Thanks to the people behind the scenes of the studio. Also, Jan and Danine, who are backstage. Shout out to you guys. Of course, thanks to our developers for, giving us so much good stuff to actually present. If you want more info, either on our software, on our functions, functionalities, or just a little bit more info on how to be successful on your project and how Relatics can contribute to that, I would like to redirect you once again to the different channels that we have. Our website, relatics.com, we have a resources page there where you can find loads of information. We have LinkedIn, where we post quite often. We have our release notes that you can subscribe to. So if you go to our website, you can subscribe to our release notes, and whatever we talked about today and in the last few episodes, will be delivered straight to you in your email. Basically, Relatics, everything you need to make your project a success. Again, thanks to you all, and especially to you at home. Thank you for your attention, and see you next year.